There was a 16-year-old girl who had approached a hotel worker and said that she was drugged, raped, and in her words, being pimped out by multiple people.
When it was first introduced, it was a foreign concept to us. During the training, I remember one nurse, she was sitting there and she just sat back and it was like she kind of had the wind knocked out of her. She said, I had a patient like this, and she personally felt like she failed them because she didn't ask a few more questions or have her eyes open to the fact that that's what this person was going through.
So there's a very clear and strict legal definition of human trafficking that comes from the federal government, and it has to do with 3 categories. So the means is the most important part of that definition, and it has to do with either force, fraud, coercion, and then the act is either sexual exploitation or labor exploitation, and the purpose on the part of the trafficker is either harboring somebody or exploiting somebody, transferring them somewhere, purchasing them. So it has to kind of do with all 3 portions of that definition. I do think that it's important to reach out to somebody who's an expert in the field to do the training, because there's a lot of misinformation about this issue online. There's a lot of sensationalism about it, and if you just sort of point to somebody in your organization to go and learn about human trafficking for a week and put together a course and train the rest of the staff, what you're going to end up with is a lot of flashy statistics that aren't exactly borne out by real studies, and with a lot of stories that really pull at your heartstrings but are not necessarily the most common ways in which human trafficking happens.
For us at Marriott, this is an incredibly important issue that has tremendous implications for both our hotel workers as well as the communities in which we operate. So the way that the training was built was actually role-based and function-specific, because we recognize that different types of hotel workers and different roles at the hotels actually may see different things. To date, we have trained over 600,000 hotel workers across all of our properties globally, and we've provided that training in 17 languages, so we've also provided the ability for hotel workers to take that training in their native language where possible. In general, the training was designed to be a see, demo, and do model from a learning perspective, so that we could teach the concepts, let people know what those warning signs were, let them understand what they should do about it from a see something, say something perspective, when they should go to management, what those conversations might look like, and empower practice.
Over 1,000 of our employees have received training on human trafficking identification and response, and that includes everyone from attending physicians, residents, people who work in the lab, people who are transporters, nurses. In a healthcare setting, we have a really unique window of opportunity because we are sometimes some of the only professionals who have an excuse to speak with someone alone that a person who's trafficking or exploiting someone would accept. So we do a lot of training around how you maximize that opportunity. Healthcare staff on our team focuses more on what do we do, what is our protocol within the hospital, how do we get to speak with people alone, what would you do if you were concerned that a patient you're working with is being trafficked, what would be the steps to take next. So we really do the trainings hand in hand. Role plays work really well, and sometimes we do role plays where we play the patient and then the audience of staff being trained are the healthcare provider, and so we give a little bit of information and then we say, now what would you do? And then we hear kind of the collective responses. Really, the methods that we use are to be survivor-centered, so to always be providing information and options and not forcing any decisions on anyone. Always trying to avoid anything that would sound judgmental.
So the Stop It program has been around for about 13 years, and we're a local anti-trafficking program. We also do a lot of work in the transportation systems, so not necessarily with formal relationships, but really engaging with Lyft has been a really responsive entity. So we've been able to train some of their drivers as well as their incident response teams on identifying trafficking and what to do when they think that someone who's in one of their vehicles is actually experiencing trafficking. In terms of safe reporting, typically we found that it is helpful to have, whether it's reaching out to a manager or in terms of Lyft, they have this incident command, so you can talk through a situation with someone and make sure that you're not just kind of jumping to an extreme response, that you're actually responding in a safe manner. If there's like an organizational protocol for allowing a space for someone to make a phone call, or even just giving that hotline number to someone so they could actually reach out in that context, would be really helpful.
I think that for the C-suite of a company, there would be two arguments to make human trafficking an important initiative. The first is for the employees of that company. I think employees these days, my understanding is they tend to move around quite a bit from company to company. Every couple of years, they're looking for a new organization, and sometimes it's for their own growth and development, but oftentimes it's because their ethics don't align with the company that they're working for, and they want to feel good about where they work. The other is that I think, depending on how consumer-facing that company is, consumers are becoming much more savvy about it.
I think we've come such a long way in the few years since we started, and after having so many cases identified and so many people that we've been able to help right in our own neighborhood, we're really making a difference in people's health and well-being.
So I think just across the board, we hear about an increase in reporting because hotel workers really know what to look for, that hotels feel empowered to address the issue, and it's making a meaningful impact on people who are victims of human trafficking.
Part of our responsibility as a community and a broader community is really just reflecting on our own influence, on our own spheres, our own social circles, and really figuring out what we can bring to the table and not always expecting it to be a victim service provider who's stretched really thin, who's overwhelmed because of funding and because of kind of the stress of the work to come up with ideas for other people to respond, but just know what we bring to the table and bringing that forward and starting conversation there is going to be really important.